Client care. Firstly, thank you for volunteering for this clinic. We really appreciate the time and effort that our volunteers put into running cases. We know that it's greatly appreciated by our clients who otherwise may be left without support, and we hope that you find it a rewarding experience too. My name's Danielle Zyder. I'm the Pro Bono Manager at Access Social Care, and I have responsibility for the day-to-day running of this clinic. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me using the email address or telephone number set out in this slide. What we'll cover in this video. Firstly, we'll look at the people we support. Secondly, we'll think a bit about the issues around taking instructions. And finally, dealing with clients and their families. The people we support. We support a diverse group of individuals. Currently, the majority of our clients are people with learning disabilities. MenCap defines a learning disability as reduced intellectual ability and difficulty with everyday activities, for example, household tasks, socialising or managing money, which affects someone for their whole life. People with a learning disability tend to take longer to learn and may need support to develop new skills, understand complicated information, and interact with other people. They may not be able to provide us with instructions, so we often have to take instructions from people who support them, such as family members or friends. We also support older people and families of children with additional needs. The people that we support are often dealing with multiple issues and can be under a huge amount of pressure, so they need to be dealt with sensitively. Taking instructions. Our client is always the person with the care needs. However, we often take instructions from a family member or other person supporting the individual. This could be because the person with the care needs doesn't have capacity to instruct us. For example, due to a severe learning disability or a condition such as dementia. Alternatively, the person with the care needs may have capacity to instruct and understand why we're involved in their case, but want a family member to instruct us on their behalf. This could be for a variety of reasons, such as communication difficulties or anxiety about talking to unfamiliar people. Or maybe because the person feels overwhelmed by the situation and needs the support of their family member. Capacity to instruct. Under the Mental Capacity Act 2005, capacity is assessed on a decision-by-decision basis. In assessing whether a person has the mental capacity to make a decision, the following needs to be considered. Stage 1 is considering whether there's an impairment of or disturbance in the functioning of a person's mind or brain. If so, Stage 2 considers whether the impairment or disturbance is sufficient that the person lacks the capacity to make a particular decision. The Mental Capacity Act says that a person is unable to make their own decision if they can't do one or more of the following 4 things. Understand information given to them, retain that information long enough to be able to make the decision, weigh up the information available to make the decision, and communicate the decision. This could be by talking, using sign language, or even simple muscle movements such as blinking an eye or squeezing a hand. So people may have capacity to make some decisions, but not others. For example, a person with a moderate learning disability may have capacity to make decisions such as deciding what to wear or what to eat or where they want to go that day, but not to instruct a legal advisor about their social care issue. In such situations, a friend or family member can act on their behalf. Capacity to instruct. If a person has capacity to do so, they can either provide us with instructions themselves or ask us to take instructions from somebody else on their behalf. Ideally, they'll provide us with a signed form of authority so that we can evidence that the client has authorised us to take instructions from another named person. If the client doesn't have capacity to authorise us to take instructions from a third party, then there will be other ways that we'll be able to take instructions from somebody on their behalf. For example, a DWP appointee can claim and manage benefits on behalf of an individual, and we'd be able to take instructions from them in relation to somebody's benefit appeal. Someone who has power of attorney will have been appointed by the client to act as their attorney if certain circumstances arise, such as the person losing capacity. The power of attorney is set up whilst the client still has capacity to make the decision about who they want to act on their behalf, and it will then come into effect when the act, such as the person losing capacity, happens and the power of attorney is triggered. Deputyship is given when somebody needs another person to act on their behalf, but they can't make that decision to appoint somebody on their behalf themselves because they lack the capacity to do so. The Court of Protection will make a deputyship order. If there's no formal authority for somebody to act on another's behalf, then they may still be able to act on an informal basis. For example, the Care Act has a concept of appropriate individuals, and these are people who are allowed to support a person with getting their needs put in place in accordance with the Care Act. So support with helping them with a needs assessment and getting a care plan put in place. In all situations where someone is acting on behalf of another person, they must always act on an individual's best interest. And if you do have any concerns that somebody may not be giving us instructions that are in the best interest of our client, or there's a conflict of interest, then please raise this with your supervisor as soon as possible. Taking instructions from somebody with a disability. Many people with disabilities will be able to provide instructions themselves. As when taking instructions from a family member, remember to be sensitive to their individual situation when speaking to the person with the disability. Try to avoid using jargon or legalistic language. Make sure that you leave extra time for any conversations that you have with the individual, and ask them to repeat back what you're saying to them to make sure that they understand what you've been speaking about. Sometimes people are reluctant to admit when they haven't understood a conversation, particularly when they may have already asked you to repeat yourself several times. If this does happen, then try to express yourself in different ways so that the individual has opportunities to try and understand the information. It could also be that the individual does understand the questions but is having difficulty communicating their answers. So maybe you could also ask them if they would prefer to follow up in writing, as it could be easier for them to process the information when they see it written down and they've got more time to digest the information. So you have to try and adapt to the way that the individual finds easiest to communicate. If you become concerned about anything that the individual says, for example, if they're raising any safeguarding issues, then you should raise this with your supervisor immediately. We do have a safeguarding policy which you should familiarise yourself with, but things to watch out for are where they're talking about somebody maybe having control of their money or making them do things that they don't want to do. In addition, if you do have concerns about the individual's capacity to instruct you, then you should speak to your supervisor as a matter of urgency so we can decide on the best next steps. Dealing with clients and their families. Please be mindful that clients and their families often have multiple issues that they're dealing with at any one time. The issue that you're dealing with could be one of many that they're facing at that point. And this can impact on the way that they interact with you. The individuals that we're dealing with can be socially isolated, either due to their own condition or as a result of their caring responsibilities. Therefore, sometimes they do want to offload to you, because you could be the only friendly voice that they're going to speak to that day. You should also bear in mind that they may have already had to complain or challenge decisions in the past, and therefore they may have a distrust in the social care or welfare benefits system. An important part of your role is advocating for the client, helping their voice to be heard and assisting them with getting the right support in place. However, you are also there to provide them with support and listen to them. And it can be really rewarding work because it is so appreciated by the clients, particularly when they have had to face the systems on their own so many times, and they have now got somebody who's proactively focusing on trying to resolve their problems for them. When speaking to your client or their family member, give them time to tell their story. Often during the initial calls, they'll want to retell their story and go over historic events which may not be directly relevant to the matter that you're advising them on. Give them time to do that. There may be information there which is useful and relevant, and sometimes the things that are the most important aren't always the first things that they talk about and can sometimes come about almost as a bit of an afterthought. So do give them time to speak and explain their situation. Once you've started working on their case, make sure that you provide regular updates, even if you don't have much to report on. This just lets the client know that they haven't been forgotten about. Whilst you do need to give the client time to tell their story, there may also be times when you need to encourage them to focus on the issues in hand. We're not going to be able to fix things that have happened in the past or all the issues that the person's got in their lives. And you need to be clear about what we are able to help them with and the scope of your involvement. When you're speaking to them, try to avoid using legal jargon or any acronyms. This just helps to make sure that the communication is clear and that there aren't any crossed wires. And as mentioned above, clearly explain what you will be able to do for the client and the parameters of your work for them. Once the client has got an advisor who they trust and who is supportive, they sometimes will want the advisor to do more than we are able to for them. So it's really important that you manage their expectations from the outset about the scope of your work and what you'll be able to assist them with. If there are areas of weakness in their case, then you do need to raise that with them and just let them know realistically what they can expect from you. Once the case has been referred to you, you'll be the first point of contact for the client. If the client or their family member raises any safeguarding issues, or you become concerned that there may be a safeguarding issue, then please raise it with your supervisor as a matter of urgency. Examples include things such as physical or financial abuse or self-neglect, but you should refer to our safeguarding policy for more information. Please bear in mind that the information that we hold on clients is very sensitive, so please make sure that you're familiar with our GDPR policy and ensure that client information is handled in a secure and confidential manner. Clients really value the support that they receive from our volunteers, and here's a small sample of feedback that we've received from grateful clinic clients. Thank you so much for the invaluable support and guidance. You gave us hope at a time when there wasn't any. I feel like as a family, we have power and control which we didn't before. I spoke to KB yesterday and she wanted me to feed back to you how grateful she was for the support you and the volunteers offered. She called the service seamless, well organised and well managed, also really understanding. She felt that without the help they wouldn't have won the appeal. I hope that you've found this training useful, but please contact me if you have any further questions. Thank you.